machines, we have what's called right here, those 4 icons, that's the line properties, that's what we've been using. Once we get our design drawn, that part's done, and we're going to move to the next 4 icons, and that is called region property. Okay, here's where we're going to put in the actual quilting stitches. So with this one, if you're going to draw with your finger or whatever, this is where these come. You can adjust the width of it. Say if you're going to draw in fill stitches, that's a whole other class. We're not using that top line at all. What we are going to use, later on, we'll be using the stipple. But for right now, the rest is today and half of tomorrow, we're going to be using number 3. And that is the decorative fill patterns, which I refer to as my quilting designs. Hit select after you highlight it, and here are the 15 that are in the Altair, the Meridian, and the Destiny 2s. Okay. So what I like to put in the very center of mine, I like to put the little pebbles, and I like to make them small. So I'm going to do that. So I click on the pebbles, design number 5, the circles, and then I'm going to click on OK. And it doesn't matter what this color is, because you can change your color. If you're doing more than one area, you want all the colors to be the same, because then your machine recognizes everything is one color. So we're going to click on OK. I'm going to turn my background image up to about 50% so I can see the design on it. I'm going to come here and I'm going to highlight the region fill bucket right there. And then I'm going to click inside of my outline. Just go to the center and click. Okay, so look what happened. That tells me I had a hole in my outline somewhere. It filled the entire screen. So I'm going to back up, and now I'm going to turn my background. If that happens to you, here's how to fix it. I turn my background image all the way off, and I am going to highlight my lightning bolt, and I'm actually going to pick up my number 1, my first pencil, because I've got a little hole in my outline somewhere. Now, if you go from start to finish, you probably won't have a hole, but I stopped so many times and went back, that's why there's a little hole somewhere, but it's okay, it's easy enough to find. Now I'm going to enlarge, I'm going to zoom in to about 800%, and I'm going to move my box around the outline. I will see the hole, because you will see the hole in it. I'm just moving my little box right up here all the way around the outline until I see the gap to fix. Oops. Don't see it yet. I'm looking. Where are you at? Oh, there's the gap. Look at it. That was a big hole. So now I'm going to put my filter, my image back up a little bit, and I'm just going to hand draw that over. It doesn't have to be perfect, because once again, that's not going to stitch out. So that was probably it. Now, while I'm zoomed in, I'm going to turn my region fill bucket back on, and I'm going to tap and see if it holds it in or if it fills up the screen. That worked. That was my one little gap to fix. See how it filled it in? You can see the preview up here. So now I'm going to zoom all the way back out to 100%. And now I can see what my pattern looks like. So you can use any pattern in there that you want that you have in whichever machine you have. So now I'm going to click next. Okay, so the screen on the Destiny 2 looks exactly like this screen. Okay, except this has a different icon, but it does the same thing, this pocket. So here, I personally like how this one looks. And on the Solaris, these icons are over here down the right side of the screen, but there's about 3 extra ones, okay? The only ones we're going to be concerned with right now is the percentage and this third box says on. This is outline on. On the Solaris, I think it defaults to off, but you'll have a little box over here for the Solaris where you can turn that outline off and on. Trust me when I say this, you want to turn your outline on. Okay, it'll stitch the outline around. The reason being, if you turn that outline off, check this out. See where all of those little curves end out here? That's going to be a jump stitch, and it's going to tie off and put every place that ends, it's going to put a knot on the back of your quilt. You do not want that. Trust me. Turn your outline on. That's as simple as clicking on it and selecting on, and then set. The percentage, this is what makes the design larger or smaller. So I'm going to drop it all the way down, as small as it'll go, 50%, and I'm going to hit set. And now I'm going to preview what that would look like. And there it is. So yeah, my other one is not that small, so I'm going to do this one that small. So it'll take about 16 minutes to stitch out. If you want to wait and see what this looks like stitched out, totally cool. But in the meantime, play with your different fills designs inside of the center of the quilt to see which one you like the best. Because you're the one that has to live with it, not me. I'm going to take it over into embroidery. I'm in embroidery edit. It doesn't matter what color thread this says up here, because I'm going to use the orchid thread. Even on that yellow, you'll get a good chance to see what this looks like before you stitch it out. I'm going to go ahead and send it to embroidery. I'm not going to touch or do anything else to it. And now, I need to thread my needle. So there that is. And now it's ready to stitch out. Now then, coming back down to here before we stitch out, I am going to make sure I'm actually going to leave my jump stitches on this time because it's only going to have one start and one stop. If you turn outline off, you want to turn the jump stitch scissors off. That's the only way to prevent from having 5 million little tiny knots, hairy knots on the back of your quilt. Okay, I'm going to select OK. The next thing I'm going to do is see where it says, see the needle plus and minus? That's on all machines. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to make it go to its starting point by touching +1. That's where it'll start. Now I'm going to do a needle up and down, and I'm going to pull my bobbin thread to the top. That helps prevent any thread nests on the back of your quilt. Whether you're doing this one or a different or some other quilt, that's how you get rid of having thread nests on the bottom of your quilt. And I'm just going to actually use my hand wheel and go down and up. I'm going to pull my thread up, and there I have them both. See how easy that was? That also pulls your upper thread underneath your presser foot. Now, I just hit -1 because it went forward 1 stitch. And now I'm ready to lower my presser foot. And I'm going to hold on to these 2 threads. Check it out what I'm doing here. I'm going to hold on to my 2 threads while it starts. And then I'm going to press the start button, hold on to the threads. And once it gets away from the starting position, I'm going to stop it and trim my threads. Okay, let me get my scissors. And I'm going to restart. Now you might think that's really contrasty, and it is, but if you use one color of thread throughout, it kind of blends it over. Okay. It's totally okay to use a different colored thread on the top and a different colored thread on the bottom if you want to. Totally up to you. So we're going to let that stitch out. Here, see what that looks like. That's with the orchid thread. If you bought a kit, the orchid kit, that's what this is that I'm stitching out. There's what that 50% looks like. And once I use that same thread and work my way out, it'll look a whole lot better than that as far as that goes. So what I normally do when I'm just demoing for a class where people are not sewing with me, it's a lecture demo, I normally use white thread regardless of the color of the panel. On my other sample, that's what they have on it. That I'm going to do one that was like just in the kits, like a lot of y'all got. This will look fine once it's set. It really will. Don't let this sharp contrast creep you out any. Once it's all over the quilt, it will look perfect. It will all blend together.
Do you leave the outline on for all the petals?
I do. For instance, and it just finished, you can see on this one here. Now this was done on the Solaris, so I can use a thinner setting so the thread isn't as thick. However, you can see here on this one, all the outlines are on. Let me get it closer. What that does, that defines the edge of your leaf and your design. And it gives it, if you have that turned off, it just kind of blends together. You really want each leaf outline. Trust me on that.
Should the designs get bigger as they go out from the flower?
I don't. I usually do everything at 100% except for the very center of it, and I usually make that a little smaller.
Oh, okay.
You could do it at any magnification you want. If you turned it up to 200%, it would take half the amount of time to stitch out as it does at 100, and use half the amount of thread.
Great. Okay.
But it looks fine either way. It really does. It's just a matter of personal preference. So this is done stitching out. I'm going to take it out of the machine. Now, I'm going to show you something before I move this up. So once you're at this screen, it's done. I just clicked on OK. Now I'm going to touch this so I get back to this screen. You can save it to a USB stick or a memory if you really like it. And if you do another panel, you can skip IQ. Because if I just put this into machine memory, I don't have a USB stick or anything in it. Now it's saved. Now if I go home, check this out. This is pretty cool. Go to embroidery, go to my machine, and right there is there is the center of that quilt, of that flower panel. Touch that. It'll bring it up, hit set, and now I can go in on my positioning app and go to embroidery. There's only one icon on the positioning app for embroidery for the Altair Meridian. And then I can position this design right on top of that panel in the hoop. And we know by designing it in IQ, it's the perfect size to fit. If you need to, while it's in embroidery edit, you can go up here and you can size it and make it larger or smaller. You can rotate it if it needs to be rotated to make it fit the image on the screen. That applies to all machines, Destiny, Altair, Meridian, Solaris, Solaris 2.